let's pivot off into Daniel Dubois and talk about Daniel Dubois. Last week we had Daniel on talkSPORT. Let's have a listen to him talking about his departure from Don Charles.
So, Daniel, now you've split from your trainer, Don Charles. Was that your decision?
Yeah, 100%. Just thinking, looking back, Don's been great for me. We won a world title together, but I was just thinking about moving forward and how I can improve myself, and yeah, that was my decision.
Can a new trainer get more out of you?
I hope so. I'm willing to give everything I've got, everything I've got left now at this stage of my career, and become 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. That's my goal. I'm willing to do anything to get to that.
And is that new man Tony Sims, Daniel?
I can't say for now, to be honest. I can't say for now. I need to sit down and talk with my team first properly about everything, how the structure is going to be. But there will be an announcement soon on that, for sure.
Sam Jones was very keen to reinforce the sentiment that this was Daniel Dubois' decision, and you can imagine why I'm asking that in a second, because we'll get onto that. But what do you make of the decision for Daniel to depart from Don?
It's happened for as long as boxing's been around, and I don't agree with it in many senses, because
in this particular instance,
I think Don Charles is a tremendous trainer, yeah. and I feel like fighters, especially Daniel, Daniel seems like one of those fighters where he sort of gets a little bit deep into his own head, and you need to sort of walk him through different situations. Yep. In them specific circumstances, you need to have a good, close relationship with your coach.
Yep.
And I'm talking from experience of being a fighter myself.
Indeed.
And I had 3 coaches, but literally from the 5th fight, Oliver Harrison was training me from my 5th fight to my 37th fight. So the vast majority of my career, and we could have a conversation without even having one. He could tell what was going through my mind. You need that trusting type of relationship. And, every time a fighter loses a fight, they look elsewhere for someone to blame. And sometimes you've just got to look in the mirror and go, okay, I've got to analyse what happened, how I lost that fight, have a discussion with my coach, and moving forward, how do we fix those problems? And then further down the line, when he's in a similar situation, he's looking at someone in the corner then who's walked this path with him many times before, and he can go, right, listen, we've been here before. Remember what happened last time? Please don't make that mistake again. Let's go down this path now. And you can sort of hold his hand with it. Whereas when you're starting afresh, and you've got to build that relationship again. And it's a dangerous sport, this. It's a very dangerous sport. You want to look someone in the eye in the corner and trust them.
And know that you can trust them. Do you see any... I know it's difficult to observe because obviously you're not inside that camp and that environment. Can you see anything materially that would be a reason why this decision has been made? I mean, obviously, Daniel, there was a lot of plaudits given to Don for the performance against Anthony Joshua. A lot of people would argue that Anthony Joshua fought the perfect fight for Daniel Dubois to do what he did to him. But notwithstanding that, Daniel had to be in the right state of mind and the right position to execute the outcomes that he did. The disadvantage was he didn't get to fight Joseph Parker, and so that we could have perhaps then seen the next stage in what was happening. Can you see any, from the outside in looking at it, any thinking besides you said a moment ago, which is this happens? It's like a football manager. You lose a bunch of games, you get fired, and it might not be the football manager's fault. Someone's got to be blamed for it.
Of course.
In this instance, can you, without wanting to be controversial and create a division between you and a fellow trainer, any mitigation behind the thinking besides it's a fight they've lost and they want to make a change, or is there anything that you look at and think, well, I can understand that?
Yeah, not really. I'm going to be deadly honest now. Like, there's loads of situations where I see, analyse a fight, and I go, or I'll listen into the corner and I think, oh, God, the instructions could have been better there. Nothing what Don Charles did for me was wrong. You're talking about him going in there with a pound for pound great in Alexander Usyk.
Indeed.
And you're gonna be in positions where you make mistakes, and it's not necessarily you've made a mistake, he's made you make a mistake. So God, there's very few sort of situations where you can make an error and get away with it.
The fighter,
so he's been absolutely.
Yeah, I'm saying the fighter has to have complete trust in the trainer, and that takes time. You can't just keep chopping and changing every time something doesn't go right in a fight, or you lose a fight, etc., etc. You go, right, let's look for a new trainer because something must have been wrong. You have to
But he didn't lose the fight because of Don Charles.
No.
He lost the fight because he got beat by the better fighter.
Sure.
And that's what I mean. It's different.
Some would say that we've had this discussion on a couple of occasions, and I was sitting next to another fighter's trainer, and I'm not going to embarrass him by saying who it was at the fight. And when I saw Daniel, and again, I'm careful what I say against the expertise in the room, when I saw Daniel in the first round get Usyk in the exact position that Usyk never wants to be in, and very rarely gets himself into, which is in the corner, and Daniel didn't let his hands go and didn't do anything vaguely resembling what we thought was going to be the blueprint for doing it, it did tell me that something was disconnecting, and it may well be that all the that was going on before the fight about parties and all that stuff distracted him. But that in part also is the psychological approach that the trainer did have to bring to the equation, because that was the moment, wasn't it? Did you see it? Did you see that the same way? Or
I think early on in fights, if you miss those chances, you take away momentum where you can build on it and stuff like that.
Even if you don't land, you show intent.
Absolutely, absolutely. But mindset is such a huge factor in boxing, and people have taken a mickey out of fighters who get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go running and things like that, and they go, why do you do that? But it's not necessarily about the road work, it's about the mental discipline about it. And having a party before a fight and then going to the fight, and I'm not throwing people under the bus here, but what I'm saying to you is Daniel Dubois could not be in the right type of mindset if he was sat in the house a couple of hours before,
if he's been distracted,
watching videos of Alexander Usyk going, when he manoeuvres into these positions, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure I do that. Instead of socialising with people. So his mind wasn't on the job. He's not focused. That's what he should be doing. And it's not like me trying to reinvent the wheel. That's just
But it leads
sense.
me on to a question of you as a trainer. If you were put in a position, because it's kind of accepted, Spence, albeit it's not fully established, that a large proportion of what happens with Daniel is on his father's say, and his father is the person that he looks to. I think we saw it in the fight when he was down, when he was getting counted out. He was looking across to his father. We saw Frank Warren in previous fights against Filip Hrgovic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or was it against Jarrell Miller?
Jarrell Miller. Yeah.
When Frank called him up to his father to say certain things to him. How would you approach that dynamic if you were put in a situation where you were given the gig to train Daniel Dubois, knowing that there was such a powerful, omnipotent representation from his father?
Yeah, I think I'm learning about this coaching game. Every different type of fighter, different style, different personalities, and looking from the outside in, I would approach that in the way of I would try to understand why they're so close. What the reason why his dad feels like he has to be looking after him in the way he does, and then it might be a necessity. Daniel might need him there. He might not be. But would
it be your preferred way of operating? Absolutely, it feels to me that it wouldn't be.
Absolutely not. And what I'm saying to you is, I would have to sit down. So, for argument's sake, if they rang me up tomorrow and said, "Can you train Daniel Dubois?" I'd say, I'm not sure whether I can, because I'm not sure about this, the circumstances around it.
Yeah.
If you want me to have a sit down and a conversation with him and his dad or whatever and try and understand it a bit better, then I'd be willing to do that. But I'm not sure whether this is going to work. And then I would then make a decision.
Yeah.
I would go, explain to me why this situation is going on. And if it was sort of plausible, the reason behind it, I'd be going, right, okay, well, moving forward, we'll have a talk about it. In all honesty, in these situations, I've got to be in control.
Yeah, but that's
because your son's life's in my hands.
Yeah.
But I don't mind you being there as a moral support, and we'd have to come to some sort of arrangement.
I think the problem that you have in this unique circumstances with Daniel and his father is that the head coach is the guy that is giving the instructions. Jamie, you know better than anyone as an ex-fighter. You get into these certain situations in a fight and your head's all over the place and you need a calm, one set of instructions. The problem that Daniel has, and this is going to be a problem moving forward with whoever the trainer is, he then reverts to his father. He's looking at his father. He's all over the place. And that's a huge
and that's
problem.
What I mean about
That's a big problem.
If it's a problem, it has to be resolved beforehand and not on the night. It's causing frustration, people talking over each other, and maybe they're learning the job. That maybe his dad's going to look at that and maybe take accountability and go, listen, I know I need to take a step back.
We had Paul Smith on the show last week, and he was talking about Daniel Dubois per se. Have a listen to what Paul had to say.
I've said for a long time, and I mean this in the most respectful way as I possibly can, I think it's beyond saving with him. I think whenever a fight gets hard, we've seen it proven more than once now. He doesn't seem to have that fortitude, that grit, that desire, that mentality of you're not beating me, I'm going to stick in this and I'm going to outlast you, and that's what.
What do you mean by that?
needed.
I mean, he dug in deep against Hrgovic, didn't he?
He dug in deep against Hrgovic, but then we saw it in the Joyce fight. It wasn't there. We saw it in the first Usyk fight. I felt he could have got up. In the last fight, I felt he could have got up. As soon as the referee got to 10, he gets up and he walks back to his corner.
Paul,
I'm not beating him with a stick because he's down. I'm not sort of kicking the man when he's down. That's just my observations of what I'm seeing and what I've seen in the past. And I saw it in the Joyce fight. And I said after the Joyce fight, that's in him. That's never going to leave. And that's always going to be the case if a fight gets... That's just my opinion.
There is a building consensus, and it was something that Tony Bellew echoed the other day about, and again, I want to choose my words moderately careful, about, because it takes heart to get in a boxing ring. It's about degrees of gag reflex and biting down on the pain, which is the one that you describe. Do you think that Paul Smith and Tony Bellew have got it right when they think that there's just that missing ingredient when it gets really, really hard for Daniel, really in the dark place that only you fighters know what it feels like when you've got to do something beyond the normal and beyond the pale of tolerance, that Daniel maybe just doesn't have that gag reflex or that ability to dig in?
I think like in everything in life, really, there's so many layers and aspects to it, and I think for the vast majority of it, I think they're not wrong. I'll say that. I won't say they're right, but I don't think they're wrong. What I would say is that, and I think this ties in with the conversation we've just had about trust, because when you're in those moments, so some of the stuff what fighters do is instinctive. So you might get hit with the biggest shot ever and you'll go down, and instinctively you'll get up, and really you shouldn't do. You should take a knee and let your head clear a little bit, but you'll get up because that's instinct. When you've got time to think, when your mind's not in the right place, you will go away. The first fight I lost because my mind wasn't in the right place, and I was involved in Fight of the Year 3 times after that, and so you can't question the fact that I had that type of fighting heart. But I would question myself in that first fight the same way people are questioning Daniel Dubois now. The only thing what changed for me was confidence in my conditioning, my coach, and when I was in those situations afterwards, I had the mental fortitude to come through it. And I feel like Daniel, there's probably that one ingredient missing in keeping him down or making him go, take a big deep breath and standing up. And that's looking at his corner, someone he trusts, someone who knows him inside out, who goes, come on, get up. And he goes and gets up. That's the only difference. I think
it's fair to say that there's a different pain threshold with different fighters. Absolutely. You know, like you say, like instinctively you get up anyway. I think that's.
I don't think it's pain. I honestly don't think it's pain. I think it's overthinking.
Yeah, I agree.